Here's an idea. You can't make a movie that's so bad it's good on purpose. The Room, Plan 9 from Outer Space, and Troll 2 are all movies which, though they transgress some of the most basic movie-making tenets, are regardless able to stand as monuments of motion picture entertainment. Most often, films like these are what they are because they are working against their own limitations. Budget, talent, time, know-how, whatever it is, there is a lack of it. But it's more than made up for in gumption. But they are so rare, such the obnoxious, misshapen unicorn of the film industry, that one has to wonder, given their popularity and cult status, why aren't they made constantly? I think maybe they can't be. In the hierarchy of bad movies, I think it goes something like this. At the topmost rarest spot is the revered good bad film, followed by, and sometimes overlapping with, the B movie. Classically, a B-movie is a low-budget commercial release. Originally, they were the second feature in a double bill, and thus the B movie. But since then, B has come to signify most low-budget genre films, especially sci-fi, like the kind of stuff you see on MST3K. But because something is cheaply made, B or bad by industry standards, does not automatically place it in the good-bad pantheon with Troll 2.
They're eating her! Oh my God!
All good bad movies might be B movies, but not all B movies are good bad masterpieces. And many more films, arguably an infinite number, are just plain bad. Student films, art house nonsense, and recent Adam Sandler films go in the lowest slot on the bad movie hierarchy. Just below films like Kung Pao Enter the Fist, MacGruber, and even big budget mishaps like Batman and Robin. These might be guilty pleasures, but they're also a kind of performance of the transgression of cinematic convention. They're a dime a dozen, and they usually lack any kind of cult status. Oh, poor George Clooney. He could be my Batman any day. And actually, speaking of slick silver creatures, I haven't mentioned Sharknado yet for a reason. We're gonna deal with that monstrosity in a minute. Anyway, I think we can all agree that Dude, Where's My Car is a much different so bad it's good movie experience from, say, Birdemic. It's in comparison with these other kinds of bad that we might be able to locate the Maltese Falcon-esque truth of low-budget good-bad movies. Which, by the way, Nick Ruff let me know are called nanar in French, so I'm gonna say that from now on because it's rad and also much easier than saying good-bad movie over and over again. First, and most importantly, nanar have to be earnest. Meaning, it is probably going to be a better nanar if the people making it don't know that they're making and do not mean to make a nanar. It's easy to view such an arrangement as being a little sad, and given the time and cash involved, maybe even a little tragic. This is my tragic face.
Everybody betrayed me. I fed up with this world.
But I think that's another important aspect. Nanar do need to be at least a little tragic. No one has ever watched The Room and not thought to themselves, what are these people? How did this even? Oh boy. But like in a good way. This intense experience of schadenfreude is so enjoyable we even do it in huge groups. The Room and Troll 2 specifically go on tour, are celebrated with documentaries, and are shown at midnight screenings around the world. The Room even has its own particular set of audience participation pageantry. We couldn't find any white spoons, so sorry. The social aspect of nanar is really key. I think, if we're being honest, they're not so much movies to be watched as they are movies to be known about, to be shared, and to share in the complete disbelief of. Watching is not the primary experience of nanar. Celebrating is.
This is a beautiful party. You invited all my friends.
And so now we're finally prepared to talk about Sharknado. I enjoyed Sharknado as much as everybody else, including the people who enjoyed it even though they didn't see it, because according to some sources, Sharknado did better on Twitter than it did on television. In other words, Sharknado nailed the social aspect. People were so on board with Sharknado that they skipped watching and went right to celebrating. Which is not bad, no judgment zone, but I think might be indication number one that Sharknado belongs not in the good bad movie canon and that you cannot nanar on purpose. For all the excitement, Sharknado lacks the gut-churning characteristics of movies that are perfectly and earnestly far from perfect.
Oh, the
Asylum, the company which made Sharknado, produces 10 to 15 movies a year and has produced 300 movies to date.
Oh my God.
That's a volcano!
Mayday.
Amongst them are such hits as Plane vs. Volcano, The Co-Ed and the Zombie Stoner, and Asian Schoolgirls. They know exactly what they're doing, and they very successfully do it. What's missing, though, is the grand narcissism needed to conceive of, make, and then distribute something that is not a success, or is only a success by way of its spectacular failures. It's missing Ed Wood's inability to think or spend within a budget, Claudio Fragasso and Rosella Drudy's willingness to write a script in a language they didn't speak and then refuse the help of the cast when they offered to fix it. To make Nanar on Purpose, one necessarily lacks Tommy Wiseau's bizarre portrait of the American man, James Nguyen's jumbled ecological moralizing, and his just nearly unforgivable sound editing.
Here is a menu.
Thank you.
I'll be right back with you.
Nanar are just as much about the film as it is about the making of the film and the lore surrounding it. They show us how films are made by being terrible at hiding the seams and all the moving parts. All the conventionally bad aspects on their own or even all together would probably make something not Nanar, but rather just unwatchable. But when packaged with a charm that is often the byproduct of a creator's narcissism and a community willing to gather to celebrate it, these characteristics turn from transgressions into triumphs, and in doing so announce some of the childishness of playing make-believe in front of a camera and lights. Sharknado lacks all of this, but in truth it is a terrible movie that people love, and Asylum did it on purpose. So maybe the Nanar isn't some obnoxious mythical unicorn, as it is a shark propelled by the unrelenting force of nature. And by force of nature, I mean Hollywood production company. What do you guys think? Can you make a movie that is so bad it's good on purpose? Let us know in the comments, and if you want to subscribe, just click on the football. So it seems like maybe I should do impressions of the people I'm quoting more often. Let's see what you guys had to say about How I Met Your Mother and its finale. Foxyman Short 7 brings up Milton Babbitt's Who Cares If You Listen, which I haven't read since college, and on rereading it realized why I have such a love-hate relationship with Milton Babbitt. It's so good and also infuriating. We'll put a link in the doobly-doo. You should read it and check it out. And then they also point out, along with Shauna Levin, that there was a alternate ending shot and edited that will be included on the DVD, which is, I don't know if that is infuriating or heartening. I think it's infuriating. Leslie Founder Grail writes a really great comment about how you can justify many, if not all, of the decisions the creators made in the ending, but that it doesn't necessarily mean because they are justifiable, it is enjoyable. And this actually is pretty close to how I feel about the ending. I think I would have been much more accepting of it if it was not just felt like it was crammed together into a final 3 minutes when we spent almost an entire season on one weekend. It's just confusing, just confusing. I'm confused. The Skiz fan seems to suggest that the thing that is of the utmost importance is maybe the intentions of the artist, and that as long as they were doing something that they felt was right, that is what is most important. And this also makes me think that, I mean, maybe the mark of the finale, maybe the reason it's good is because we're having this conversation, and I think that is a success. Will Castros sort of extends this point in a comment that you should read all of, links to this one and the others in the doobly-doo, but kind of seems to suggest that art will just always organize a pre-existing audience, and that finding that audience is easier today than it ever has been. And so again, it's important to consider the audience, but also very important to do the thing that you feel is right for the art you're making. Fair. Mary Wilton and a bunch of other people talked about how they enjoyed the finale, just not the last part of it that has kind of felt a little bit like an about face. And this makes me think about how invested we become in these characters and how we want things for them. We want things to work out for them. We want their lives to be a certain way. And when it doesn't turn out that way, it's almost personal. So, I mean, you know, the power of fiction, right? Gahoge Kitty writes a really great comment about the structure of endings and how even though they enjoyed the finale, it felt formally like it was a little dishonest or weird or rushed. And this really makes me think about what we expect formally from the way stories are told using television, and that maybe, along with trying to tell the unexpected story, the creators of How I Met Your Mother were also trying to tell it in an unexpected format, and maybe that created some sort of jarring effect for a huge portion of the audience. I don't know. Charlie B defends the How I Met Your Mother finale on the grounds that just because Ted and Robin were not good for each other in the past doesn't mean that they aren't good for each other now, and that maybe the entire thing, the whole finale, is just to shift perspective from what we've been thinking the show was for. Maybe the show itself is about how Ted would just always eventually end up with Robin, because it would seem as though that is the point of the story he's been telling his kids for a very long time. Maybe time to go back to season 1, episode 1. This week's episode is brought to you by the hard work of these vegetarian goblins. We have an IRC, a Facebook, and a subreddit, links in the doobly-doo. We also got nominated for some Webby, so if you wanted to vote for us for those, we would not complain. And the tweet of the week comes from Samelu, who points us towards an awesome piece about Adventure Time by Maria Bustillos. Check it out. And for this week's record swap, we will be replacing Band of Horses with Laurie Anderson's Big Science. All right, so goodbye Band of Horses and welcome Laurie Anderson.